Most of you will have heard of the HDP Nexus and probably know it well. What I'm going to do today is give you a snapshot of how the HDP Nexus as a reform initiative has performed. Then I will summarize progress and outcomes achieved to date. And finally, I will conclude by highlighting key areas that need to be addressed going forward. Today's presentation is based on what we have seen the system learning from its work on the HDP Nexus since 2016. I'm going to cover this in four main areas. First, understanding the motivations for the Nexus in the context of humanitarian action today. Second, we're going to look briefly at the evidence base. Third, I will share 6 key findings from our research. And finally, I will wrap up with 4 priority areas that Nexus actors need to focus on going forward in order to make more significant progress. So the case for the Nexus can be summed up in just 2 slides. The first is about the rise in the number of people in need. There has been a dramatic increase in protracted crises in the last decade, driven primarily by conflict. As the image shows, there's been an 88% increase in the number of people in need. More worrisome, this rises to a 150% increase if we look at this year's figures. Now, this manifests itself in huge financial and operational pressure for the system. Humanitarian funding has more than quadrupled over the past decade, but it's failed to keep pace with the 5-fold rise in requirements. We're now going to look at the evidence base on the Nexus. The findings I'm presenting today come in part from ALNAP's flagship publication, the State of the Humanitarian System Report. The study looks at Nexus implementation based on key informant interviews and an analysis of Nexus progress in 5 countries. ALNAP also has a forthcoming paper, which is an evaluation synthesis on the HDP Nexus. The synthesis paper is based on a review of 600 evaluations, after which 90 evaluations from 27 organizations were retained. This research found a large number of evaluations on humanitarian development linkages, but few evaluations that integrate peace. A majority of the evaluations were undertaken by UN agencies or bilateral donors. So now that we know about the case for the Nexus and the evidence base, I'm going to present 6 key findings. If we want to sum up Nexus progress, we can do so in 1 slide. What our research suggests is that there has been significant progress on Nexus policy commitments following the OECD DAC recommendation. But there have been a variety of different approaches to Nexus implementation, and there is also quite a bit of confusion. Moreover, a majority of Nexus practitioners said progress on the Nexus was only fair or poor. And much of this is caused by barriers posed by the fragmented and siloed funding architecture. I'm now going to unpack that snapshot of Nexus progress through the presentation of 6 key findings. The first question that we asked in the research was, is there a common understanding of the Nexus? What we found quite quickly is that there's not a common definition of the Nexus. And in fact, there's a huge variety of ways different actors describe and conceptualize Nexus approaches. Related to this, there's often a lack of theories of change tied to Nexus approaches, resulting in a lack of clarity on what outcomes are expected and how they might be achieved. Evaluations often highlight the need to better ensure that staff are fit for fragility or trilingual, able to work across the humanitarian development and peace components of the Nexus. There have also been calls for more operational guidance. Evaluations suggest that organizations need to more clearly define what the Nexus means in relation to their specific mandates. And Nexus thinking needs to be further integrated into existing tools, analytical frameworks, and partnership principles. One could also argue that it would be helpful to more clearly outline the exact steps that organizations might be expected to take in the process of operationalizing the Nexus. Now, if we focus more on organizational progress, then there are significant steps being taken by key actors. In particular, many multi-mandate organizations are working on their internal silos, including, for example, institutional overhauls in the Swiss government's aid agency to break down internal walls separating their humanitarian and development assistance. And we can also see major investments made in staff capacities to support Nexus work, such as the creation of Nexus advisor posts in HQs and at the country level. Finally, the UN DAC-supported Nexus Academy is also working now to build the trilingualism necessary to bridge silos. But overall, bilateral donor progress is mixed. When the OECD undertook its midterm review of progress on the HDP Nexus recommendation, over half of donors reported feeling stuck in their institutional silos. Now, some of the blame for all of this can be attributed to the siloed approach to funding in conflict and crisis settings. What we clearly see is that in general, humanitarian funding remains fragmented and siloed. While there are a variety of new financing facilities, partnerships, and trust funds by the World Bank, the EU, and others, many traditional funding mechanisms have yet to catch up. This is often a problem related to both the quality and the quantity of funding. Looking at extremely fragile contexts, humanitarian aid still outstrips development assistance, and indeed it has more than doubled as a share of ODA in these contexts. Too much humanitarian funding can be seen as a curse for the Nexus as it remains humanitarian. Returning to the earlier points about confusion around Nexus approaches, the introduction of peace into the Nexus has proven challenging for many humanitarian actors. At times, it has been viewed as a social cohesion add-on, or at worst, as a dangerous threat to principled humanitarian assistance. More worryingly, evaluations show a lack of focus on conflict sensitivity and do no harm in many Nexus approaches, which could be considered the minimalist approach to peace. There is a need to build on recent efforts to unpack peace in the Nexus, and this is consequently the issue that many actors have been reaching out to ALNAP about, asking for advice. Now, the IASC has worked on outlining peace in the Nexus and has conducted a mapping on peace tools. Going forward, ALNAP will be working with the IASC and UNICEF in the coming year to update the IASC mapping of good practices, which will aim to capture recent learning on the peace pillar in particular. Related in many ways to the challenges of peace, the sector is still struggling with how to best provide assistance in problematic state contexts such as Afghanistan, following the Taliban takeover, or in Mali. There are strong concerns about humanitarian principles and what happens when you mix humanitarian assistance with an emphasis on security, stability, and foreign policy objectives. For instance, we have heard recent appeals for taking a no guns in the Nexus approach. The IASC and others have sought to clarify this, including through guidance that outlines the approach international actors may take in different contexts, given a specific state's willingness and ability to engage and uphold rights. But evaluations suggest that more work is needed to demonstrate how a Nexus approach can lead to better long-term engagement in problematic state contexts. Our last key finding is on coordination. What we have found is that it is often at the country level that Nexus initiatives and coordination becomes more tangible. Organizations are increasingly coming together at country level for the development of collective outcomes. In a few countries, including DRC, we have started to see these coordination structures generate active pilots, although many country-level approaches to coordination appear to remain largely ad hoc. More importantly, evaluation evidence finds that many Nexus coordination efforts remain led by humanitarians, with patchy engagement from development and peace actors. There's also concern about the sheer number of coordination structures and questions about how duplicative they may be and how well they can include and integrate local actors. So let's take a step back now and ask, what is the Nexus achieving? The Nexus is often related to the notion of collective outcomes that all actors can contribute to. but only 21 evaluations that we looked at even mention collective outcomes, with only 10 describing them in detail or how they're trying to meet them. Even more worrisome, none of the evaluations focus on outcomes for affected populations. Some also raise the concern that collective outcomes create a new parallel process. The bigger problem is that there is largely no accountability framework accompanying the collective outcomes. Who is meant to monitor collective outcomes is not clearly defined. What this means is that to date, we have seen no evidence that a Nexus approach is leading to better outcomes beyond the individual project level. I'm now going to briefly talk about 3 priority issues that need to be addressed going forward for further Nexus progress. The first area is working on bottom-up approaches to the Nexus, including putting a greater focus on localization and gender. Some people argue that the HDP Nexus is a solution to a problem that we, the international system, created. Local and national actors often don't define themselves as humanitarian or development actors. One recent evaluation called local actors a Nexus glue. Despite this, localization and Nexus debates are often happening in parallel to each other. A great deal of Nexus coordination is being led by UN agencies and international organizations, and some have described this approach as being top-down. Only 4% of evaluations reflect local or national leadership, and only 2 evaluations mention community ownership in Nexus approaches. Moreover, there's strong evidence from evaluations that gender is not being regularly mainstreamed into Nexus approaches, processes, or collective outcomes. This begs the question, what would a locally led, gender-sensitive approach look like? Can we imagine a more bottom-up approach to the Nexus? Now, the second priority area relates to climate and the Nexus. The humanitarian sector is increasingly seeking to address climate risk and resilience, with more work on anticipation. Yet surprisingly, climate is largely missing in Nexus approaches, despite the greater focus on risk in most Nexus programming. This lack of attention to climate and the environment was previously pointed out in 2018 in a UN evaluation group paper on the humanitarian development Nexus. Hence, this lack of focus on climate in the Nexus is not new. This then begs the question, should the HDP Nexus become the HDPC Nexus? If so, what actors are well placed to lead on integrating climate into Nexus processes? Now, the third priority area relates to evidence. As I mentioned, there's a lack of strong evidence on Nexus outcomes, but there are opportunities to address this. The 5-year review of the OECD DAC recommendation on the Nexus will take place over this year and be finalized by early 2024. There's a question of how much this review will be based on self-reporting and if it will capture the views of affected communities or have a focus on outcomes, moving beyond capturing mainly organizational change and internal progress. Related to this is the fact there is currently no collective, commonly agreed results framework for measuring Nexus progress. Hence, there are no commonly agreed indicators. What this means is that it's hard to compare progress across actors and to hold actors to account when each actor is using a different metric. Related to this is the variety of approaches to evaluating the Nexus, with many members reaching out to ALNAP for support. Now, this is positive in the sense that there's clearly high interest and momentum for evaluating Nexus approaches, and we have captured recent examples in our forthcoming paper. But there's still only weak evidence to date on Nexus progress, and there are surprisingly few joint evaluations given the focus on coordination, coherence, and complementary action. Finally, continuing the mapping of good practices, such as the work of the IESC Nexus Task Force that ALNAP will be co-leading along with UNICEF, remains a key priority going forward. I want to conclude now with some reflections on the ultimate aims of taking a Nexus approach. The question to be asked is, where is the Nexus going and will it achieve its aims? The answer to this question depends on what your view is on the main purpose of the HDP Nexus as a concept. If you see the Nexus as meant to break self-imposed institutional silos, then the progress to date is mixed. But if you see the Nexus instead as meant to be about reducing humanitarian needs, well, this is not happening. Humanitarian needs are increasing year on year. Similarly, if the purpose of the Nexus is to address root causes, there is clearly not evidence for this, and only a handful of evaluations even mention root causes. Finally, however, if the purpose of the Nexus is to help improve coordination of all actors at country level, then we do see good progress and reason for hope and optimism going forward. But ultimately, progress depends on what we mean and what goals we aim to reach with the Nexus. So the question I want to leave you with today is this: is the Nexus meant to be a transformative agenda, or is it a process of incremental change? Thank you.